We're here today to install a tank Q monitor on this horizontal storage tank. Before we start, this is completely safe installation. No gas can or will escape from the tank. However, do not drill, cut, alter the tank in any manner or any of the lines in the tank. Installation will require a few tools. If your tank is already equipped with a remote ready dial, you'll only need an adjustable wrench. However, if you need to replace the dial, you will require either a Phillips screwdriver and a small flathead screwdriver, or possibly a penknife that you can use to actually help pry off the dial. Tank Q reads the dial on the tank, and the dial is located under the cap or helmet of the tank. So our first step in putting the tank Q unit on the dial or on the tank is we need to lift this helmet to expose the dial where we'll actually install the tank Q unit. As we mentioned, tank Q reads the dial on the tank. The dial is located under the cap or helmet, which we've removed here for the purpose of demonstration. Just a word of caution, I know from experience that during the warm months, bees love to build nests under the cap, so be cautious. Here you can see that the dial is located at this point along with the other components on the tank. There are basically 9 different style dials that are available to fit propane tanks. There are basically 4 different styles. There are senior dials, and they measure 2 3/8 inch from screw to screw. There are junior dials, and they measure 2-inch screw to screw. And both of those types of dials are designed to fit on horizontal tanks, which are the long, flat tanks, as this one is shown, vertical tanks, and then also underground tanks. These junior and senior dials have molded in plastic flanges where the screws actually attach the dial to the tank. There's another style dial, and these dials measure 1.5 inches in diameter, and rather than having 2 molded in screw flange holders, they have just screws that attach around the perimeter of the dial, holding the dial in place. These dials, however, appear identical, and the only way that you will notice to be able to separate the two is look at our order form, and it will help you distinguish which of the 2 dials you need. These dials also fit only horizontal tanks. There is one other dial available, and it just snaps in place on vertical tanks. If your tank is equipped with a glass dial or another type not mentioned here, please contact your supplier for help. Our website order sheet better explains the dials. Let's continue on with this installation. Continuing with the installation on this tank, you will notice that this is a junior dial. It's 2 inches screw to screw. To remove this dial, you remove these 2 screws, and this dial will pop off in your hands. The next step in this procedure is to actually replace the dial with a remote ready dial. It's easily done by removing these 2 screws. As mentioned, the dial just lifts off, and we put the new dial in place. Snug the screws down. And the dial has now been replaced, and this black dust cover needs to be removed. That's where we're going to actually attach the tank Q unit. The next step in the procedure now will actually be to attach the tank Q unit to the dial. The tank Q unit, we provide a clamp that can be attached in 2 manners. either so it clamps horizontally to the tank, slides in, or drops over vertically onto the lifting lug. In this case, we attach the clamp to the stud on the bottom of the tank, on the bottom of the monitor, and screw it down hand tight so it will not twist off of there. And now the monitor itself is ready to be installed onto the tank. The next step in the procedure is the actual attachment to the dial. In the assembly, this wiring harness is gathered with a wire tie. I suggest that you just pull the needed wire out of the wire tie, and you take the black shoe, that I would call it, and you snap it in to the dial that we just installed on the tank. You hear it click, and that lets you know that the dial and sending unit are now properly installed. The only thing left to do is actually take and attach this clamp to the lifting lug of the tank. The only thing that's left to do to install the monitor is stretch out the wire, and in this case we're going to drop the tank view unit over this lifting lug and then use the wrench to tighten the clamp to the tank. You want to tighten it down so that the neighborhood kids can't lift it off the tank and it's soundly attached. Stretch the wire out. And now the tank and unit are complete and the installation is complete. I would recommend that you tell your neighbors that you have the unit installed, so if in fact they see it flashing, they can call you and actually help you monitor your tank. And basically that's the end of this demonstration. The tank U unit now is completely installed. All you have to do is watch for the flash and call for gas.